Hello, hello. Hope everyone's having a great weekend. We're about to get started, and I am CounterTop Commander. I play Commander games about twice a week, normally here on Sunday and then on Wednesday or Thursday. On Sundays, I do a very casual game. It's pretty much just these beginner decks that we have in front of us. And I do a little bit of teaching how to play Magic, or at least the very, very basics of Magic. And then on Wednesday or Thursday, I play more advanced decks, and just kind of whatever I want and how whatever I'm feeling at the time. So today, let's go ahead and get started. We have Angels versus Hydras versus Soldiers versus Thopters. So we have a number of these sort of simple decks that I've built and put together specifically for showing people how to play Magic and teaching them kind of the ins and outs of the game, plus this particular format in general, the Commander format, I should say. And that's just meaning the Commander as a format, or whenever you hear that word format, all it means is that we're playing by a rule set that's in addition to the normal rules for Magic, just so that it kind of shakes things up and makes things interesting. Commander was founded sort of as a very casual version of Magic, so we get to play a lot of really fun things. We're not trying to be too competitive. You can definitely be competitive if you like, but Commander wasn't initially intended for that purpose. So more something to hang out with your friends and just goof around kind of thing. Let's go ahead and get started, though, on kind of, like I said, I'd spend Sundays sort of teaching how to play Magic, or the basics for Magic. So let's go ahead and dive in with the deck that's in front of us, the one that we'll be starting with, which is this Angel Tribal deck. So essentially, each of these decks are going to focus around one color of Magic and one particular creature type. In this case, we're focusing on Angels as our creature type, and we're also focusing on white mana for this one. So on the back of each of the Magic cards, you can see there's 5 little dots here. That's each of the different colors of Magic: white, blue, black, red, and green. And each of the different colors have their strengths and weaknesses, and you can basically play them in any combination that you want to. You can play all of the colors of Magic together in one deck, or you can actually play no color games. Sorry, and have a deck that is known as colorless, essentially. We're not going to be playing with anything more than one color, because that makes it a little bit more manageable to deal with on the mechanics side of things. So let's go ahead and use our commander here. Our commander is Regna the Redeemer. So let's go and look her up so we can get an idea about what she's like and use her as an example for, let's see, use her as an example to explain what you're looking at when you look at a Magic card. So you can see I put up the card image so it's a little bit easier to read. The lighting in here is a little iffy when it comes to the camera. So if we look at the top left portion of the card, we can see the name of the card. It's sort of the unique identifier for each card, of course. So Regna the Redeemer. And then on the other side at the top, we have what's known as the mana cost. So that's the amount that you have to pay to cast the card, to be able to use it, to put it out so that it can do something for you. So in this case, we have the number 5 and then another symbol, which is the plains symbol, basically. It's the symbol for white mana. So it costs 6 in total, and 5 of them can be any color that we want, including colorless, but the white mana symbol has to be paid with white mana. So that's really the only kind of tricky thing about it. So, like, you can have a card that has, like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 green mana symbols, for instance. So you would have to pay exactly those colors of mana. In this case, she's really flexible. You could play her in a bunch of different styles of decks because her cost is a little freer to be able to pay. Okay, so after we move past the card art, then we have about in the middle of the card, we have legendary creature Angel. So that's just telling you what kind of a card it is. So it could be, in this case, it's legendary, but it could just be a regular creature. It could just say creature, basically, is what I mean. And then there's like lands and artifacts, enchantments, instants, sorceries, planeswalkers, so on and so on. So there's a bunch of different card types. This is just telling you what type of a card it is, and that will dictate the rules for how it's used. In this case, creatures they get played on the field where kind of your play space, and then they can essentially they may have some number of abilities, and we'll get to those in a second on this card. Otherwise, they're primarily used for attacking your opponent. You'll basically say, "Hey, I'm going after you with this creature." So they can also be used to block your life total when you're fighting or when somebody else is trying to attack you. So looking a little bit further on this card, we're going to ignore the first part where it says partner with Krav, the unredeemed, because we don't really care. We're not using that part of the card. It would matter if because Krav, the unredeemed, is another creature that's a demon and it's black. So we're not going to bother with that because we're not going to use that one. So moving past that, we have flying as an ability. So that is a combat ability. And as a combat ability, it basically just means that it's kind of like a keyword ability. It means a specific thing just by putting it on the card. In this case, it means that whenever we attack, our opponents can't block us unless they also have a creature with flying. So it's literally just that we can go through without getting blocked, essentially, or it's basically evasion. So then after that, we have this other ability. At the beginning of each end step, if your team gained life this turn, create 2/1/1 white warrior creature tokens. So all this is saying is that if we gain some life, if we gain any life, then at the end of the turn, whoever's turn it is, not just ours, but any turn, then we get to create warrior tokens. We get to create free creatures that that can help us defend ourselves, basically. So that kind of clues you in on what kind of deck this is. It's not just angels, it's also life gain. So we are going to, everybody starts off with a certain amount of life. Let's go and look at that. So you can see here we have each of the life totals for the 4 different decks. Because it's Commander, we start off with 40 life. In regular Magic, we start off with 20. So that's one of the, like I said, because of this format, we kind of play by sort of additional or changed rules from the basic rule set just because of the way that this is set up. So we start off with 40 life. We're going to care, or this angel deck is going to care heavily about gaining more life and then using that life to do different things, whether that's creating creatures or making our creatures stronger or something like that. So we have a number of options, and that's what we're going to go for. So then let's go ahead and take this initial turn. We'll go around each of the decks and kind of explain what they're doing. And we're going to explain what they're doing as we get to their first turn. So when you start a game of Magic, you always shuffle up, and then you allow your opponent the chance to cut your deck. It's sort of a gentleman's agreement that that neither of you are cheating, kind of thing. So you offer to let them cut your deck, and they can cut it however they want to. After that, you start the game by drawing 7 cards and deciding if you want to keep the hand that you drew, which there are a number of mulligans. We're not going to deal with mulligans too much just because very casual, so we're not really heavily we're not going to dig too deep into the mulligan rules. That's something that you'll have to talk about if you go to a GameStar and start playing. Then you'll want to talk about what they've been using for their mulligan rules. So looking at this hand, we have a number of lands. So we talked about the cost of a card. So the cost is paid through playing lands. So you can play 1 land a turn, And you can obviously you can only play a land if you have one in your hand. It can only be played on your turn, and it can't be played at instant speed, basically, which just means that if somebody did something like somebody cast a spell on us, we could have cards that have the ability to interact with that spell at instant speed. But in the case of creature cards and lands, they pretty much don't have that ability. So you'll have to let them do whatever they're going to do, and then you would have that's when you might get a chance to play if it's on your turn. So we're starting off with 4 different lands, which is actually pretty good for this deck. We talked about Regna a little bit ago, requiring 6 mana to cast. At some point, we really want to be able to get her out, but we need land to be able to do that. 4 is a really good start on getting us to that 6 that we need to cast her. And in addition to that, we also have this one, Sephara Sky's Blade, which costs 7, so it costs even more. So we're going to definitely want to get this out at some point as well. So we're kind of holding off. We're kind of hinging on these 2 cards being the cards that we're going to play as we try to build up enough mana to cast these really big creatures. In this case, we have one card that's called Oblivion Ring, which will act as a removal card. So if somebody tries to do something that would really hurt us that we don't like, then we could try to use Oblivion Ring to stop them from doing that. And then we have a 4-cost Angel. So Angels are generally a little bit more on the expensive side when it comes to mana costs. This is one of the lower costing Angels. There's still a few that are even less, but this is one of the lower ones. And it fits really well with our plan here. So hopefully we'll draw some more land later on, but even if we don't, we'll still be able to get this creature out. So that's really helpful, and I think that it's important when you start playing to try to remember to take hands that fit in with your strategy, but also fit into the strategy that you have in your opening hand, because you basically don't really want to take a hand where you can't play anything. Is essentially what you're looking for. So we have a hand where we can play stuff. It's a little bit on the slower side, but the thing about it, like I said, Angels typically cost a lot of mana to be able to play. So this deck in particular is a little bit slower. We have a couple of, so this is what I call a big tribe. It has big creatures that come out later in the game that have a big impact versus a small tribe. So we have Thopters and Soldiers. Those are 2 of my smaller tribes. They build up a lot of small creatures quickly, but they don't generally have really big creatures. So we're going to have really big creatures. Those 2 decks are not, essentially. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the turn. So when we take our first turn, or turn order in general, starts off with a thing called untap, your untap step, or untap phase. And basically all it means is that whenever we perform an action with a card that we have out on the battlefield, we represent that it's used up its energy for the round of turns by turning it sideways by tapping it. So normally you'd, like this is this plains right here. Let's say we used it to get mana to cast something, so we turn it to the side to represent that it's used up its mana. It's just a kind of a clever way to represent what you have available to your opponents. Now, we're starting the game, so we don't have anything to untap, but all turns start with the untap phase. So that's when you would turn everything back to an untapped state. So we'll get to that as we play some more cards. After the untap step, or untap phase, I keep saying step. Untap phase is the upkeep phase. So generally nothing happens, and nothing can happen in the untap phase. But in the upkeep phase, it's sort of like our beginning of turn. So if we wanted a card to have something have an effect that happened at the beginning of the turn, it would happen during the upkeep phase. So right now we don't have anything. There's nothing out. So there's nothing that can happen during the upkeep. So we're just going to move past that. We may have something later, we may not. But it's important to note that that's how the game is set up so that basically they put it after the untap phase so that players couldn't interrupt your untapping of your resources to begin your turn. So after upkeep is drawing a card. It's the draw phase, so we'll draw one card, and that's good. We wanted another planes. We need one more to be able to cast our commander, so that's really good. So after you draw a card, then it's the first main phase. So this is when we could start playing cards, and especially stuff like lands. So we'll go ahead and play that land that we just drew. After this main phase, we don't have any other cards to cast right now. So normally we would just end the turn at this point. But to sort of explain the rest of the turn, after you cast all the things that you want to cast, or play in this case, you can go to your combat phase, which is where you declare attackers with the creatures that you control. And after that one, you get another main phase. If you wanted to cast something or play something after combat happened, say you had very unfavorable things happen during your combat, then you could play something else at the end of the combat. After you do that, then there's the end phase, and you essentially just pass the turn. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to end our main phase and pass to the next deck that we have. So the next deck that we're playing is Tribal Hydras. So this is, instead of white, it's mono green. And sort of the same thing here. We have this guy right here, our commander, Gargos, Vicious Watcher. Let's go and look him up. Let's go and take a peek at him. So, hang on just a second. Let's go ahead and do there. Now we can get a good look at him. So he's a big boy. He costs 6, just like... Oh, I forgot one last thing about these cards. We talked about everything on the card except for these numbers in the bottom. So just going quickly over the card, how cards are set up again. We have the creature or the card's name, in this case Gargos Vicious Watcher. We have the mana cost, so he costs 3 colorless and then 3 green. So he costs 6 in total, and 3 of them have to be green mana. Again, we're not going to worry too much about that because we're playing only one color, so we're going to pay everything with green basically anyway. So after that, we go past the card art. We get down to, it's a legendary creature. That's a Hydra. And then after that, we have a combat ability called Vigilance. So Vigilance just means that normally whenever you attack with a creature, you have to turn it sideways. That's that tapping thing. So basically we would say, okay, well, this creature is going to expend all of its energy this turn to attack somebody. Well, Gargos is such a beastie boy that he has Vigilance. He just attacks. He doesn't have to tap. He doesn't spend all of his energy for the turn attacking. He can do other things during the turn if he wants to as well. So then after that, we have Hydra spells you cast cost 4 less to cast. So this guy's like, not only am I super buff, but also I make all of the other Hydras cost fewer mana to cast. So that's going to be really good later in the game. Then, even further, he has, whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, Gargos Vicious Watcher fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So what that jumbled mess of a paragraph means is that if somebody tries to do something to any of my creatures, they say, they're like, I really don't like that creature. Could you let me go and cast the spell. It says destroy a creature. So I'm going to destroy your creature. Well, Gargos says, oh, well, if you're going to do that, well, I'm just going to eat one of your creatures in response. And that's literally what he does. Fighting means my card deals damage to your card and your card deals damage back to mine. So they literally fight, but just not in combat. So why that's important is because Gargos, now look at the very bottom here, we have an 8/7. So what that indicates is the power. The first number is the power of the card. The second number is the toughness of the card. So essentially, the first number is how much damage this card can deal in a turn. So 8 damage. So we're talking about 40 life for each of the players. This guy deals nearly a quarter of that damage each time it attacks. So it's really powerful. And not only is it really powerful, but it also has that high toughness value. So toughness being how much damage it can take in a turn. So when we were looking at the angels, Ragna over here, she can't be blocked in combat, but she's only a 4/4, so she's actually kind of weak compared to Gargos. Gargos is just a monster. He's so tough, so he can take a lot of beatings, which means that we can take advantage of this ability to fight things, because this ability doesn't just trigger whenever somebody else tries to do stuff to our creatures. We can do stuff to our creatures, and it'll cause Gargos to fight as well. In that case, something like, let's say instead of destroy a creature, maybe we have a spell that says target creature becomes more powerful. You know, it gets a +2/+2 bonus to its stats. Well, in that case, Gargos says, what? You making me stronger? Then I'll fight something. It's really cool. It's really fascinating to have this creature. So we're going to try to be playing a bunch of spells that do that. But of course, first we have to be able to get Gargos out. So let's go ahead and look at our opening hand. And boy, do we have an interesting opening hand. Normally, I would say starting with 5 lands, not so great. But in this case, Gargos is the card that we want to get him out as soon as possible. He can win a game just by himself. So we want to get him out as quickly as possible, and we're going to do that with all of these lands here. So we're going to hopefully we'll be able to get Gargos out really quickly, and to help us do that is this card called Rites of Flourishing. So this one is a enchantment. Let me go and take this down. Rites of Flourishing is an enchantment for only 3 mana, so we're going to cast it pretty quick here. And what it says is, at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Each player may play an additional land on each of his or her turns. So not only this card affects everybody, so everybody gets to draw an extra card during their turn, but not only that, they also get to play multiple lands in a turn. So we're going to be, once you get that Rites of Flourishing out, the next turn we're going to be up to 5 mana. So basically, we'll almost certainly going to play Gargos a turn early. So instead of waiting until turn 6, we're going to probably be playing him on turn 5, which is really great news for us. And then after that, we also have this really cool Hydra. So remember, once we get Gargos out, this guy's going to cost less. So normally he costs 6, 4 colorless and 2 green. But he's going to only cost 2 green when we get him out, and he starts off as an 8/8. So we're going to have some BV Hydras here to start attacking with. And even further, Hydra Omnivore has this really cool ability. Whenever it deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. So this guy, he attacks basically everybody all at once. It's going to be great. So let's go and draw our first card and see where we're at with our hand. So there's a lot of things that we could draw here that are really good. We're already starting off really good. So Protean Hydra. So another Hydra. That's still good news. We want to see that. We want to see more Hydras so that we can play them and have a really strong army once Gargos gets out. So we did untap. We didn't have any untap. We didn't have anything on our upkeep. So then the next step, or the next part of the turn, is the draw step. So we drew a card for the turn. After that, we move on to main phase 1, where we can play a land and play spells. So we're going to go ahead and play 1 land for the turn. That's as many lands as we can play for a turn until we have something else that says otherwise, like this card. And since that's all we're doing, we are going to pass the turn. We're done. We don't have any combat or any additional main phases. We just shuffle on to the next player. So our next player is a little bit different. So the last 2 decks are filled with big creatures. This deck is filled with smaller creatures. And this is going to be, this is going to be a little tricky, but it should be interesting to see considering what we already know about the other decks. Now this deck, the way that I play these games is I don't know when I start a hand, I don't base a decision that we have in front of us for this deck based on what we know that the other decks have in their hand. We're not going to pretend to know that. So we're going to try to avoid making decisions that would basically be cheating. We're going to try to play this straight and like make an argument for each step that we take. Now, sorry. This deck is our Soldier Tribal deck. So, the idea behind it is that we have Audric Lunarch Marshall. Let's go ahead and put him up on the screen. So, the way that I'm doing this is I'm using a website called Scryfall. It's really, really good. You can see the cards yourself there if you want to. Very easy website to use. So here we go. We have Audric Lunarch Marshall. He is a 4-cost card. You can see in the top right corner. 3 colorless, 1 white. So the other 2 cost 6. He costs 4. So he doesn't cost nearly as much. And with him, we have a really, really long ability here. So he's a legendary creature, human soldier. And he starts off as a 3/3. So he's a lot weaker, right? So he costs less and he's weaker because he costs less in many cases. Or in basically, like that's kind of how it ends up working out. So with Audric, though, we have this big block of text. At the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn if a creature you control has first strike. The same is true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. So, what that garbly gook means is that if one of our creatures has a combat ability, then Audric makes it so that all of our creatures have that combat ability. It's going to be really, really good if we can get... So basically, we're going to be playing with cards in our deck that have multiple abilities on them, and then Audric is going to make it so that all of them share those abilities. So now let's go and take a look at the hand that I chose to keep for this. And this is a little bit more complex because we didn't start off with enough mana to be able to cast Audric, even though he doesn't cost a lot. We only started with 2 lands, but that's also because we have this card called Tithe. So a lot of times when you're choosing whether or not to keep a hand, you can choose to keep a hand that has not quite enough mana to cast everything in your hand. I mean, looking at this, we have 6-cost card, 7-cost card, 5-cost card, 3-cost card. We can't play any of those without more mana, right? So we have to draw them, except that we have a card like Tithe. So this isn't a true ramp card, but the idea with ramp cards is that they are cards that go and essentially get you more mana. Tithe here has an ability. It's a card that we can cast on another opponent's turn if we want to. And basically it just means that we can search our library for another one of these land cards. And then if there is an opponent that has more lands than us already out, then we can search for an additional Plains card. So we're going to get up to our 4 mana using this card. Now, it's not enough to cast some of this other stuff, but hopefully by that point, we'll have drawn another land or 2 and we can start getting there. Now, of course, we don't know yet, but Gargos will actually help us get there when we're to be able to play more lands. But until that point, we're just going to go ahead and take this hand and hope that we draw maybe another Plains or 2. The other reason that we kept this hand is because these other cards are pretty decent cards. This Aura of Silence makes it so that it's harder to cast artifacts. And one of the decks at the table plays a lot of artifacts. So we're going to try to make it harder on them. And by making it harder on them, then essentially we neutralize that deck from being able to stop us. So then instead of, basically by playing this card, it'll make it so that it's a us versus 2 other decks instead of us versus 3 other decks. Because essentially we can just not care about what the artifact deck is doing because it's going to take so long for them to build up anything that we can focus our attention on the other deck. So that's why this one, because this is going to be really good for that. Plus, the other 2 decks do have artifacts and enchantments, and this will help stop them from being able to do stuff as easily too. Then we also have Mind's Eye. This is white is known for having a really tough time being able to draw extra cards, and drawing extra cards is very, very important in Magic. It's not basically the idea is that if you draw more cards than your opponents do, then that means you have more opportunities. And the more opportunities you have, the more likely it is for you to win. It doesn't guarantee you winning, it just makes it more likely. So drawing extra cards is normally very, very good. And we want to draw as many extra cards as we can. Mind's Eye is going to help us do that. After that, the other two cards that we have, these cards make a bunch of creatures that we can use to attack with. And these will take longer to get out, but once we do, we'll basically go, okay, we have Audric out, we have a couple of creatures that give abilities, now we're going to make a bunch of creatures, and then we're going to make a bunch of creatures, and then we're going to make a bunch of creatures, and all of those creatures are going to have all of the abilities that everybody else does. So hopefully we'll be able to basically build a really strong army of soldiers, and we'll take over the game. So first we have our untap step. We don't have anything to untap. After that is upkeep. Don't have any upkeep either. Nobody does right now. We draw a card, our first card for the turn for the game. Look at there. It's a land. That's what we wanted to see. So we're going to go ahead and take that. And then after that, we go to our main phase 1. So we'll play a land during our main phase. And let's see. I don't really think we have anything else to do right now. So we will go ahead and pass the turn. We have our final deck here today, which is Thopters. So Thopters is essentially, it's just a tiny artifact creature. It's like a little drone, like a little kid's drone, right? If you bought a drone for Christmas or something, you know, like just a really tiny dinky one, that's what Thopters are. They just tiny creatures. But this is, like I said, this is a small tribe versus the Hydras and the Angels are big tribes. Soldiers are a small tribe. We're also a small tribe. So we're just going to try to make a bunch of creatures as quickly as we can. And that should be enough to be able to win us the game. We're going to do a lot of different things with artifacts. That's particularly what our commander works with. So let's go ahead and take a look at Psy Master Thopterist. Hang on just a second. Let's bring him up onto the screen. There we go. So Psy Master Thopterist. You can tell he's a small tribe guy. So he costs 3 mana to play. So 2 colorless and 1 blue. And then in addition to that, so he's a legendary creature, Human Artificer. And he only has 1 power. He's really, really weak. But he has a big back end, so he has 4 toughness. So he can take on an attack from Audric. He just can't deal much damage on his own. The thing about it, though, is that he has, whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. So he makes, whenever you play an artifact, you get a free one as well. So that's going to be really useful, especially because his second ability is pay 1 colorless, 1 blue, sacrifice 2 artifacts, and you get to draw a card. So that seems kind of steep, but if we have a bunch of tokens out that aren't doing us much good, we can sacrifice tokens to draw us cards and hopefully draw us into another artifact that will be really, really strong. So that's how we're going to play this deck. We're going to try to play as many artifacts as we can. Now, we also have kind of an interesting hand here. So we're starting only with 1 land. We're going to test out and see how well this deck does with only 1 land, namely because we're going to be able to very quickly play cards. We have a 1-cost card, a 2-cost card, a 3-cost card, a 4-cost card, a 7-cost card, and then a card with... it's a little bit more difficult, but it has a complex cost that could end up being something as high as 7. So essentially what I'm saying is we have a card basically for at least the first 4 turns. If we draw a land every single turn, which we very well could, we might not, who knows. we'll be able to play artifacts basically on every turn. So that's going to be really useful to us, especially because several of these are incredibly good. So I'm hoping I decided to take this hand. It wouldn't be a hand that I would normally recommend to a new player, but we're going to go ahead and play it just so that you can see if this gamble on starting with one land is going to play out for us. So first part of the turn is untap. We don't have anything. So then we have upkeep. Again, we don't have anything during our upkeep. So we will draw a card for the turn. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. That's a land. We really just need like one more land and we'll be golden. So after that, we go to our main phase. So we will go ahead and play an island during our main phase. We could play our Retrofitter Foundry. I'm going to go ahead and say, let's say no, because we're going to try to hold off and see if we can play Psi Master Thopterist before we play this card, because essentially this card is really, really strong. It has sacrifice a Thopter, create a 4/4 colorless construct artifact creature token. So we're going to be able to change our dinky little 1/1 creatures into strong 4/4 creatures. So we want to be able to get as much benefit out of playing artifacts as we can, which means holding off a little bit until we can play Psi Master Thopterist. So with that, that's going to be the end of this turn, which means that we're all the way back around to the Angel deck. Sorry about that. Just wanted to hydrate a little bit. So, beginning of the turn, untap. We don't have anything to untap. Go to upkeep. Nothing during our upkeep. So we'll draw a card for the turn. Sunblast Angel. So another really, really, really good angel. It is a 6-cost 4/5 angel with flying, and it has, when it enters the battlefield, destroy all tapped creatures. So when this comes out, if somebody else had attacked, especially attacked us, right? If they attacked us, we can punish them by playing this card and destroying all the creatures they attacked with. So I think that's going to be really useful later on. We're still not up to the 6 mana that we need, but that's okay. We're at 5. We have quite a number of turns to get there. So let's go ahead and play another Plains during our main phase. Comes right after that draw. And after that, we are going to pass the turn. Now, one thing I didn't comment on, but it generally won't be a problem. At the end of the turn, if you have more than 7 cards, you have to discard until you have 7. 7 is the maximum hand size. That's why we start the game with 7 cards in hand. So, let us keep going around, and we will get over here to the Gargus Vicious Watcher. So, we talked about this before, so we'll draw a card for the turn. Look at that. That's all the lands we need. So we're definitely going to be playing Gargus a little early. For that reason, let us go ahead and put this into play tapped. This is another land. So it is a non-basic land. Lands like this normally say basic on them. This one, because it's not a basic land, it will just say land on it. Now, this one specifically says that it comes into play tapped, so we don't even get to use it this turn. We weren't going to use it, but basically, if we had drawn it later, we wouldn't be able to use it the turn that it came out. It has tapped, add a green mana to your mana pool, or tap it, sacrifice it to get 2 green mana. So this is a card that we could use to get cards out a little bit quicker. We're not super concerned about getting stuff quick. We're going to get stuff quick out quick anyway, so we're not super concerned about that. But we're playing it tapped here so that in a later turn we're not trying to play it and needing that mana that turn. So we're playing it tapped now is basically what I'm trying to say. After that, we have nothing else to do. So after that main phase, we're going to end the turn. Going back around here to the soldier deck. Now, the soldiers, like I said, do have this card over here, Tithe. in order to get us additional lands if we need it. Now, the thing is that so the card type is instant, and what that means is that we can play it whenever we want to, whenever the game allows us to. We could play it. The thing is, though, that we don't really need to play it right now because we're doing okay with the cards that we have. We could draw another land here and we wouldn't be behind. So I think I'm going to hold off on casting this at the end of our opponent's turn and just see what we get up to. So let's go and draw a card for the turn. So we had untap, nothing, upkeep, nothing. So we'll draw a card. Ballyrush Banneret. Kithkin spells and soldier spells you play cost one less to play. So essentially all basic to explain this a little bit, it says spells. That's because everything starts off as a spell. When you say, okay, like let's go and do it. So we drew a card for the turn. Let's go to our main phase 1. So we will play a land. We will tap 2 mana and we will cast Ballyrush Banneret. So before this card actually enters the battlefield and becomes a real thing, it starts off as a spell. And while it's still a spell, somebody else could respond to us. If somebody else had an instant speed card, they could say, wait a second, that card's really dangerous. I don't like what you're doing with it. I'm going to put a stop to it, or I'm going to destroy something else you have, or I'm going to, just insert blank thing into that spot. Somebody could respond to that. So it starts off as a spell, then it becomes a creature. That spell turns into a creature, essentially. So all this is saying is that now next turn, we can play Autric if we want to. So we're going to be able to get our cards out even quicker, which means Tithe might be a good card to cast in a following turn soon so that we can do stuff with it. But since we don't have anything else, so Ballyrush Banneret, that's essentially all it does, is it just makes things cheaper. It's a very small soldier. It's a 2 power, 1 toughness creature, so it's really weak, but being able to cast our soldiers quicker is a big plus. So let's move on to the Thopter deck and see if we're going to get lucky again and draw another land. We could get super lucky, and we'll have all that we need. So let's go and draw a card, and it is Prototype Portal. Okay, so not great. It is a 4-cost card, so it's going to take us a while to get there, but that's okay. This card will come into really good use later on. So for now, we will go ahead and just play our second planes. We have 7 cards in hand. We do not have anything else for the turn, so we will pass the turn over to the Angels. So let's see here. With the Angel deck, we don't have anything to untap. We don't have anything during our upkeep, so we will draw a card for the turn. Adhikar Valkyrie. Okay, so another 6-cost angel. So we're definitely getting all of the really good angels. We just need the lands to be able to start casting them. So we will, after we drew, we're going to our main phase. So we will play a plains, and we don't have anything else to play here because nobody has really played anything that we're concerned about. So this Oblivion Ring is going to probably just sit in our hand for now. And next turn, we'll go ahead and play our first angel. So we will pass after that, going over to the Gargus deck. So Gargus is going to untap. See, we had a card that was tapped. Now we untap it at the beginning of our turn. So then after that, we have upkeep. Don't have anything, though. So we will draw a card for the turn. Another forest, I mean. That's all right. We needed the mana, so we got the mana. We're going to go ahead and play a forest during our main phase. We're going to tap all 3 of these lands. We're going to add 3 mana to our mana pool and cast Rites of Flourishing. So now everybody's going to draw an extra card and can play an extra land. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and play our extra land for the turn, and then we will pass. So now people probably should be getting a little scared because it means that we might be able to be getting Gargus out next turn. And that's a really, really big deal. Gargus is a is a scary monster. So the soldier deck is going to untap for the turn. We don't have anything during our upkeep. We get to draw 2 cards. So we're going to do that. Here's our 2 cards. Then we get to play 2 lands. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to play a Plains, and then we're going to play Rogue's Passage. Now we have, let's see, I think that actually, let's see, before we play this second land, we're going to do something else instead. So we want to get Audric out. But before we get the mana to do that, we are going to pay 1 white, and we're going to cast this Tithe. So see, we have 3 lands here. There's somebody with 2, there's somebody with 3. But this Gargus deck over here, he has 4 lands now. So that means that with Tithe, instead of just searching for 1 Plains card, we get to search for 2 Plains cards. Even better. So let's go ahead and do that. We are going to grab a Plains right there and another Plains, and both of those cards are going to go straight into our hand. How very lucky. Now we have pretty much all of the lands that we need to be able to cast some of the highest costing cards in our deck. So that's really, really good. That's really strong. So let me finish shuffling here. After this instant, after Tithe takes its effect, so just like I said, so basically everything you play other than lands count as spells. So this Tithe was a card that if somebody had something they wanted to do in response to it, they could have done in response to it. But after it takes its effect, by having the quality of being an instant, it does its effect and then goes away. So now we can play other cards. So we are going to go ahead and play a Plains from our hand. We're going to pay 3 mana, and that allows us to cast Audric. Remember, because Audric is a soldier card, and this card makes it cheaper to cast soldiers. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Exactly what we want to see. So we did also draw one of the other cards we drew was Endless Atlas. So this one is really good for mono-colored decks like this one. So this one is all white mana. Then we have all blue, another all white, and another all green. So this card would be good in all of them. It allows us to draw cards for a very cheap price. So I'm happy to have that card. And also, because of how we set things up, we have 7 cards in hand. That Tithe might have put us over, but because we could play additional lands in the turn, it allows us to cast Tithe without having to throw away anything at the end of the turn. So now, after we cast everything, we can go to combat if we want to, and I think we'll go ahead and do that because Ballyrush Banneret does have 2 power, so we will declare it as an attacker. So let's see. It seems like we can't do anything about Gargus right now, and that's a scary note. That's a scary thing to think about. So we're going to go ahead and attack the Gargus deck while we can. So to bring up the life total again, here we go. We attacked this guy for 2 damage, so they are down to 38 now. And after that, we will pass the turn. So let's go. Oh, there's one other thing. I'm using this to also keep track of how many times we cast our commander. It could be relevant, and I'll explain that later. So Audric, these commander cards, they affect what we can put into our deck based on the color. So once we choose our legendary creature, we have to use a legendary creature as our commander. If this card was a red card, then we could only play red cards. If this card was blue and green, then we could only play blue and green cards. So that's part of how it works. But in addition to that, the commander lives essentially in a thing called the command zone instead of in your hand or in the deck of cards that you play. And we can play it as if it were in our hand, but then it'll If it dies, we can send it back to the command zone, except that we have to pay an additional tax each turn. It basically just means that it costs extra each time we want to replay it. But for now, that's all we have. We're just going to end the turn. So now it is the Thopter's turn, who is very happy of the prospect of maybe drawing into 2 lands. So we don't have anything untap or during our upkeep, so we will draw 2 cards for the turn. Unfortunately, not anything. Oh, that is quite unfortunate. We didn't draw any lands, but we drew something to draw a card. So let's go ahead and play that because we really desperately need it. So we will play Ichor Wellspring. It's a artifact, so it's not a creature. It's just a straight artifact. It costs 2 mana, and it has when it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. So we will draw a card for it entering, and boy, that is a sweet, sweet land there. So we're going to go ahead and play that land. And unfortunately, that's all we can do. And we have 8 cards in hand, so we have to discard something. I'm thinking that a lot of these cards are stuff that's really good, that we like to see, that we want to see. So I think this is the one at the end that we're going to go ahead and get rid of, this Abjure. It's something that we could do to stop somebody from doing something else, but it's very limited in its application to be able to do that. So, or it's limited enough in this scenario right now that we're unlikely to be able to play it very effectively. So we're just going to go ahead and get rid of it at the end of our turn so that we're down to 7 cards. So now we're back over to the Angels here. So we do not have an untap. We don't have anything during our upkeep, so we will draw 2 cards for the turn. Look at that. So we have an Angel and this Core Cartographer, a cheaper Angel, in fact. That's nice. And Core Cartographer is one that can search us up another land, which is really what we want, honestly. But we are getting into some questionable things here about what we're going to do. So we're going to get into our first main phase, and we're going to go ahead and play the 2 lands that we have. But now, here's a really, really important question. We could play a number of cards. We have a number of cards that we could play right now. All of these cards are cards that we could play. The unfortunate thing, though, is... So, this Resplendent Angel is going to be a great card when we start gaining life. This card could get us more mana. This card would be good. We could play it this turn. It'd get us to 6 mana, so that next turn we could cast the Angels that we have in our hand. We also have this one, which is just a really good card, a really good Angel. But then we have this Oblivion Ring. So the question here is, we could either advance our board state, or we have one other option. We could use this Oblivion Ring to get rid of something that's out on the battlefield. Now, there's not very many things that we could target with Oblivion Ring. There's that Ichor Wellspring that the Thopters just played, but it's pretty innocuous. It's not really doing much. Over on the soldier side, we have the Ballyrush Banneret, which is making things cheaper. That might be a good target, and they have their commander out as well. Audric is a great target for Oblivion Ring. But there is one other card on the battlefield. The Rite of Flourishing. Now, with this Rite of Flourishing, it seems like the intention here is to be able to get Gargus out next turn. We know that Gargus, because of how this game is set up, we don't know what the Gargus player has in their hand. We do know they have 4 lands, and Gargus costs 6 mana. So he's 2 lands away. That player is 2 lands away from getting Gargus out, and nobody is ready for Gargus right now. Least of all me. I don't have anything that can really do anything about Gargus. We have some tough creatures here. We could kill it if it fought our creatures, but it's going to be a few turns before we can get to that point, and that may be too late for the Gargus player to have taken over the game. So the question is, if we take out Rites of Flourishing right now, they'd only be able to play 1 land next turn, which means that we would still have 1 more turn before Gargus could come out. That being said, the extra cards and the extra land do make everything faster. We may be able to play like our next 2 cards could be lands for instance, and then we'd have 7 lands and we could cast everything that we'd ever want to, essentially. But at the same time, like it's sort of a gamble here. We either take one for the team by basically using up our mana this turn to stop Gargus from coming out next turn, or or we could advance our own board state and hopefully get us into a position where we can take down Gargus, which might also put us into a better place. But that's a difficult question. I don't think that there's necessarily a really, really good answer here. I think with the setup that we have, there's multiple answers here. Now, that being said, I think it comes down to either we get an extra land this turn, or we play the Oblivion Ring. Now, we could also, mind you, the other thing that we could do is we could save the Oblivion Ring, wait for Gargos to come out, and then try to get rid of Gargos so that it costs more mana, and hopefully they don't have 4 lands in their hand. But that being said, they're going to be drawing 2 lands a turn, so it's possible that maybe they will. I think that we're going to go ahead and risk it. We're going to see how it plays out. Not just because I want Gargos to come out. I mean, I like when Gargos comes out, but I think that we have a number of good cards in our hand. Sunblast Angel could end up destroying Gargos if we can ever see it tapped. We have really powerful angels in our hand. I think that it's worth at least attempting to get a little bit more land and then see if we can't do something about it. So we're going to go ahead and play our Core Cartographer. It costs 4 mana. When it comes into play, we search our library for a Plains card and put it into play tapped. So there we go. Putting it into play tapped. And let me do a quick shuffle here. And then we'll just basically cross our fingers and hope that that next turn means that we can do something about Gargos, and we won't be seeing it again here shortly, here very quickly, but who knows? Don't know yet. So shuffling, let's do this, and we will pass the turn with having done nothing else. So at least we are up to 6 mana. So we do have the capability of getting a lot of cards out in subsequent turns if Gargos does come out. So let's go ahead and untap, upkeep. We don't have anything during our upkeep, so we will draw 2 cards for the turn, another land, and destroy artifact or enchantment. That's interesting. That's very interesting. That could be good. There's definitely an artifact deck out there. The white decks definitely can have enchantments. White is one of the primary colors for enchantments. So there are definitely things out there for us to do stuff with. But of course, the only correct decision here is to play 2 forests during our main phase, tap all of our mana, and cast Gargos Vicious Watcher. Ooh. Scary, scary, scary. Okay. That's what we're going to do for the turn. That's all we can do this turn, so we will pass. Now, let's see. Let's go all the way around. So we're at the soldier deck, so they're going to untap, upkeep. Let's pick up all the cards in the hand first. Upkeep, we don't have anything, so we will draw 2 cards for the turn. 2 plains, nice. That is great. That is glorious. So we are going to play 2 cards. Now, let's see about this. Let's go ahead and start shutting down one opponent. So we are going to play this Aura of Silence to hopefully cramp down on that artifact deck over there. And then we will pay 2 more mana to cast Endless Atlas so that we can draw extra cards when we want to. And then I think that might be it for the turn. We don't really have anything that we can do about Gargos, so we're just going to have to try to draw our way. So that's what I mean when I talked about earlier how drawing cards is so important for the game of Magic. It, at this point, if we can draw into more of the cards in our deck, then we can deal with Gargus. We have the cards to do that. We just need to get to them. And if that means that we draw more if we have to draw more cards to do that, then that's what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and pass the turn over to the Thopter deck, who is now realizing how his position has very much soured all of a sudden. So let's untap, upkeep, nothing, draw 2 cards for the turn. Hey, we got another land. So let's go ahead and play that land. And then we are going to... We do want to get rid of some of the cards in our hand, but unfortunately, we can't really do that. This is troubling. Let's see. Let's see here. So I think that it makes the most sense to go ahead and cast Psi Master Thopterist while we can. Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that's all that we can do in a turn because now everything costs 2 additional mana to be able to cast. So we have 8 cards in our hand, so we have to discard 1. I'm going to get rid of this Inspired Sphinx. It's not remotely as good as Tezzeret the Seeker. So yeah, this is what we're going to do. We're going to keep this hand. And let me go ahead. I need to mark some more commander-related stuff here. Okay. That's all we're going to do for this turn. We're going to pass back to the Angels that now also just realized that it costs a lot more to be able to get rid of Gargus, unfortunately. So let's untap, upkeep, draw 2 cards for the turn. Nice. Mirror Entity is an amazingly strong card. Okay, so let's go ahead and play a Plains. We kind of really do have to try to get rid of Gargus, so we're going to cast 5 mana, and we're going to play Oblivion Ring. So, when Oblivion Ring comes into play, remove another target non-land permanent from the game. When it leaves play, return the removed card to its owner's control. Okay, so Oblivion Ring is going to come into play, and we are going to choose Gargus as our target. Now, the thing is with here, Gargus's ability, we talked about it, like whenever somebody tries to do something against you, then Gargus says, okay, fine, but I'll eat one of your things in response. Well, that only happens when you cast a spell that targets. In this case, Oblivion Ring is not a spell with its ability. It's a spell that creates Oblivion Ring. The Oblivion Ring comes into play, and once it's in play, it then removes something using the ability, using specifically this triggered ability of when it comes into play. So it's an ability that's doing the removing, not some other effect. So we're going to remove Gargus from the game. Now at this point, this is absolutely vile. I think that, okay, so normally this would be the spot where, so the Gargus deck, the Gargus player, I should say, has a choice here. Because his commander is getting removed from the game, he can choose to, or they can choose instead, to put the commander back into the command zone. Now the thing is that this Gargus player does have the knowledge that they have the ability to destroy an enchantment with this card in their hand. So they could say, well, I'll just wait until my turn, I'll destroy the Oblivion Ring, and it'll give me back my creature, because that's the ability of Oblivion Ring. Here's the key problem. The card that is making it so that artifacts and enchantments cost more, it has a second ability. It can be sacrificed to destroy target artifact or enchantment. So the thing is if the Gargus player decides to leave the Oblivion Ring alone so that it can do something about it, Oh, actually, let's see. Let me think about this. No, okay, so yeah, this is a really complex situation. Okay, so Oblivion Ring is really tricky because the ability that says, let's say, give me a second. Let's go and write this out a little bit so that I can explain it a little bit better. So actually we need a second card here. Okay, so we have this remove Gargus, right? That ability is on the stack. That triggered ability. Gargos, not S. So let's say triggered ability. Thank you, Cuckoo Clock. Okay. So Gargus isn't removed yet. This card came into play. Then once it came into play, it basically created an effect that acts like a spell. It goes onto what's known as the stack. That the stack is where spells can interact with each other. Spells and abilities, in fact. So this ability is on the stack. So the Gargus player could say, okay, you could remove my Gargus from the game. I could let you. Let's take a step back. So the Gargus player can say, well, if you're removing my Gargus, then I'm going to put it into my command zone because that's the quality of being a commander. I can choose to do that. Actually, let's see. Oh, they keep rewriting the rules for this. It doesn't happen. It is a triggered ability that happens after Gargus is actually removed. So yeah, so there's nothing that we can do about it at this time. We don't choose to do it as a replacement effect. So it's essentially the way the rules used to work is if an effect would remove something, the player who owns the commander could say, actually, I don't like what that's doing. So instead, I'm going to have that ability do something else instead. Using specifically the word instead is used for replacement effects. That's the language that the rules like the comprehensive rule set for Magic uses. Whenever you see the word instead, it means to replace, or as a replacement effect. So this is going to get removed no matter what. The thing is that this effect, the second effect here of Oblivion Ring, whenever it leaves play, return the removed card, return the exiled card to play under its owner's control. So what the soldier player can do is the soldier player could say, actually, I'm going to activate my my enchantment over there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in response to this card removing Gargus, I'm going to say destroy the Oblivion Ring. Destroy O-Ring. So destroy O-Ring goes onto the stack on top of this. So let's say that it resolves. So then we destroy the O-Ring. Okay, now the O-Ring goes into the graveyard. The thing is that this ability, this triggered ability, is still on the stack. It's still there waiting to resolve. It's still waiting to do something. So then O-Ring got removed though. So now its second effect comes into play. Return exiled card. Triggered ability. Go and write it here so it makes more sense. Rather quick. Okay. So then now we have this ability that's on top of, so to speak, it's on the top of the stack, saying return the exiled card. Well, that doesn't make any sense, does it? That's because it really doesn't seem to make sense, because at the moment, nothing is actually exiled. Gargus is still waiting to be exiled. It's still over here. It's just fine. The ability hasn't actually done anything. So this return exiled card is saying, okay, whatever O-Ring, exiled, return it right now, literally right this second. But there's nothing to return, so nothing happens. It just goes away. The ability does essentially nothing. And then finally we get to do this ability, remove Gargus from the game. So then Gargus goes away forever. And because O-Ring is already destroyed, there's no coming back. It's just gone forever, right? So the soldier deck could do that. But we're... I would think that... So that was when... So when the commander ability to put it back into the command zone was a replacement effect, then the Gargus player could say, okay, well, I choose not to use that replacement effect. So then the soldier deck would go, okay, well, I'm blowing up O-Ring and making it so your commander is exiled from the game forever. You can never get it back. But because it's now a triggered ability, so the ability to put a commander into your command zone is now something that essentially happens after it's already been put into exile. So there's essentially no point for this situation to occur, but it is kind of interesting to still talk about and explain that that's how this stuff used to happen, and that's how the stack works, is that you could do things like this. You could use O-Ring to permanently remove something and go crazy like that. But for now, Gargus is definitely in the command zone. It is gone. It's going to cost more mana, so let's go ahead and do it. So while we have this, we don't have anything else that we can cast this turn because everything costs too much because we had to pay 5 mana for Oblivion Ring. Okay, so we could attack this turn. I think that I'm going to hold off. I'm going to just leave this creature here, so we're going to pass the turn back over to the Gargus player, and I don't think we have... Yeah, we only have 6 cards in hand, so that's okay. So Gargus is going to get to go. And we just absolutely love Gargus. We want Gargus. Gargus is our pal, our buddy, our boy. So we're going to untap. We're going to nothing during our upkeep, so we will draw 2 cards for the turn. 2 more lands. Nice. Well, that's literally exactly what we're going to do. We are going to play 2 more lands, and because Gargus has been cast 1 time from the command zone, to recast it from the command zone, we have to pay 2 mana on top of its mana cost for the number of times it's already been cast. So right now, Gargus, instead of 6 mana, it costs 8 mana. So that's our 8 mana. We're going to cast it again. If Gargus were to die again, go back to the command zone, it would cost 10 mana, and then 12, 14, and so on and so on and so on. And that's true for all of the commanders. So let's go ahead and make sure to mark that, though. We have Gargus out again. Unfortunate that we had to do it that way, but we have so many really powerful cards, so we're sort of okay with that being the case. And we're not bothered by the additional cost for artifacts and enchantments, so we're just going to pass the turn now and see what the soldiers can do now that they help to make a mess of things. So untap, upkeep, draw, get to draw 2 cards, another land, and Elspeth Tyrell. Interesting. Okay, so we get to play 2 lands for the turn. Let's go ahead and do that. Here's our 2 lands. And we could do a number of things here. I think that we do want to play this Planeswalker that's in our hand. First, though, let's go ahead and pay 2 mana, and we will activate Endless Atlas. So it has an ability, pay 2, tap it, draw a card. Activate this ability only if you control 3 or more lands with the same name. In this case, we control a bunch of lands with the same name, so that's good. So we're going to get to draw an extra card. Loxodon Warhammer. Holy cow, that's such a good card. That is exactly what we're looking for. That has multiple abilities on it, and Odric is going to be able to share those abilities. So that's top notch. First, though, let's go ahead and pay 5 mana, and we will cast this Planeswalker. So Planeswalkers are a special type of card that essentially act as another player. They have their own abilities, they have their own health, and let's go ahead and represent that. They start off, this particular one starts off with 4. You can see that it's in the bottom corner here. You can't really see it, but if you look up the card, then you can see that it starts with 4 counters, basically 4 health. It has 3 different abilities. The first one adds 2 more health to it, and you gain a life for each creature you control. So we would activate that, but we're not going to. We could activate that, but we're not going to. So the second ability is put 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. And then it has a final one, -5. Destroy all other permanents except for lands and tokens. So we can't activate that because we don't have enough. So to be able to activate an ability, you have to have enough to pay that cost. In this case, the cost would be 5 loyalty. We don't have 5 loyalty. So we're going to activate, instead, we're going to subtract 2, and we're going to make 3 soldier creature tokens. So let's go ahead and actually, I think it's this other one over here. Let me go and grab it. Yeah, let's see, soldier. So it's just a normal soldier. It's not a human soldier, but we only have human soldier tokens for now, so we're going to go ahead and just play those. Or use those and just remember that they're not actually human. They are mysterious. We don't know what kind of creature they are. Okay, so we have 3 soldiers here, and there is purposes for doing that. These will count as really, really good blockers because Gargus will, when they try to attack us, we'll be able to block it really easily with a little dinky creature. Basically as fodder is what I should say. So let's see here. I think that's about it for the turn. I think that's all we're going to do. We're just going to go ahead and pass. We're not going to attack. We're just going to build up for now. And we can do a lot of really strong building up. Because we have a lot of cards and a lot of mana to do it. So moving over to the artifact deck, they are going to untap, upkeep, nothing, draw 2 cards for the turn. Oh my gosh, wow, that's super useful. Okay, so let's go ahead and play an island. And then we are going to pay 5 mana in order to cast this guy right here, Metalworker. So, Metalworker, once we get back around to our turn, and actually before we do that, since we cast an artifact spell, we get this free little Thoptery guy here. Okay, so Metalworker has tap, reveal any number of artifact cards in your hand. Add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool for each card revealed this way. So it's a card that's going to get us a lot of mana because next turn we will, if it's still out, we'll have at least 6 artifacts in hand, which means that we get 12 free mana from this one card. So it's going to be incredible. Next turn we're going to be able to, we're not going to even be really bothered by that card. So they're going to have to destroy my Metalworker. So here's the deal. Either we get to keep Metalworker and go crazy with artifacts, or they use their card to destroy Metalworker so we don't get a bunch of additional mana. However, all of our artifacts now don't cost an additional 2 mana. So I guess we'll just wait and see. We'll wait and see what the soldier deck wants to do here. So for now, though, we're back to the Angels. So they're going to untap, upkeep, draw a card. So we get to draw 2 cards. No lands, but that's going to be okay. Let's see here, because we still could cast a number of creatures. So I think that we want to... we are going to cast 2 different creatures here, 2 different flying creatures. So we're going to tap 7 mana, and we're going to cast Angelic Field Marshal and Resplendent Angel. So I think that's about all we want to do for this turn, because we're going to try to build it up so that we can get the Sephara Sky's Blade out, because it makes all of our other flying creatures have indestructible, so they won't be dying anytime soon. That's going to be very useful here shortly, making it so that Gargus can't just easily eat all of our angels quickly. But we're going to have to get... Actually, we could... No, let's say this. Instead of that, we're going to just go ahead and cast Sephara. So then we don't have anything that has Indestructible right now, but that just puts more pressure on Gargus to do something about us, since we have the 7 mana, and we can play multiple angels, and those angels will have Indestructibles. So let us pass over to Gargus and see what this monster hath created. Untap. Upkeep. Draw 2 cards. Unfortunately not any lands, but we do have 2 lands in our hand anyway, so that's okay. Now we can, if Gargus dies again, then we can still have enough. So first things first, let's go ahead and pay 3 mana here. We are going to play Colossal Majesty. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. I'm certain that that there is a good chance to have that. So let's go ahead and first we are going to tap 2. We are going to play Hydra Omnivore. Now remember, Gargus makes it so that our Hydras cost 4 less to cast. So in this case, he only costs 2 mana to cast. That's really, really good. And then we are going to tap 3 mana here. Let's go ahead and play Vastwood Hydra. So Vastwood Hydra has an X in its cost. So let's go and look it up. Let's take a look so you can see what it looks like. So Vastwood. Oh, no. Vastwood Hydra. There we go. Okay. So I'm putting it on the screen. There we go. So you can see in the upper right corner, there's an X and 2 green. So X just means that we get to decide how much X costs. And in this case, we're going to say, okay, so X is going to be 6. So, well, actually 5. So we have 2 green mana here. That's going to be the cost for the green mana. Then Gargus Vicious Watcher makes it so that everything costs, all of our Hydras cost 4 less. So in this case, yeah, we're going to include that 4 mana essentially into that X cost, and then we're going to pay an extra forest here to be able to do the Vastwood Hydra. So that's 5 mana for that 6 cost, and in this case, it starts off as a 0/0, you can see in the bottom, but it comes into play with X +1/+1 counters on it. So we essentially paid 5 mana for the X, so it comes into play with 5 counters on it. Now it does have another ability. When it dies, I can distribute a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on Vastwood Hydra to any number of creatures I control. So basically, if this guy dies, I can make something else really strong if I want to. And the final card we're going to play this turn is Protean Hydra. So in this case, again, we have 2 mana here. So one of the mana is going to be to pay for the green mana in its cost, and then we're paying 1 additional mana. So its cost is another X. It's 1 green and an X. So we have 4 from Gargus. We paid an extra 1, so that makes 5. So our Protean Hydra is a 5/5 creature. Protean Hydra is really cool. It should have been really cool. It's kind of iffy. It's one of the weaker Hydras that we have. But in this case, it might be okay, because essentially what happens is if damage would be dealt to Protean Hydra, we get to prevent that damage and remove that many +1/+1 counters on it. So basically it acts like the Hydra from Hercules. So if you cut off its head, if you deal damage to it, you essentially cut off its heads. But then at the end of the turn, if it's still alive, it regains all those. It gets twice that many +1/+1 counters. So if it takes a little bit of damage, then it gets however much that damage, it gets twice that stronger at the end of the turn. So that's all the cards we have in the hand. But now we have Gargus. So Gargus was out last turn, so that means that it can attack this turn. So I guess I didn't explain that with combat. Creatures, when they first come out, they have a thing called summoning sickness. They can't attack the turn they come out. You have to wait a turn to be able to cast to be able to attack with them. But Gargus has been out now for long enough that it can do whatever it wants. So we do want to attack with it, but we need to figure out what we are attacking. Looking at the board, the Angels are probably the biggest threat. But the problem is that if we attack with Gargus, they're going to block with Sephara, and we're going to lose Gargus. We would really like to be able to pump Gargus up and then attack with him, or fight if we can. So something like that. But that does present part of a... So they seem like the biggest threat because Sephara also has lifelink. So whenever it deals damage, that player gains that much life. It's going to get harder and harder to deal with that. So I am a little concerned about that. That seems really, really dangerous. But then over on the other side, we have the soldiers are getting a massive army. The artifacts have metalworkers, so they're probably going to go crazy. It's just, there is a little bit of a rough decision trying to decide who is probably the best, because if we attack the artifacts or the soldiers, they're just going to chump block. They're going to get rid of their creature and they're going to be fine. Or we can attack the Angels and we lose Gargus. We can replay Gargus next turn, but that's about all we can do. So, this is kind of a tough decision. I'm not sure what the best option here is. I'm still really concerned about Sephara, though, because it activates all of the abilities over there. Let me think about this. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and attack the Angels. I think it needs to be done. We got Hydras out, so at least we have that. We'll have to do something with them later, but for now, I think that that's going to be good enough. And we need to draw more cards to be able to get to the point where we can start fighting with Gargus. So I think attacking now is probably is a smart decision. So we're going to go and attack. Now the question, of course, the Angels. So this is maybe a little different from... No, not that one. I want this. The Angels don't actually have to block. That's the crazy thing. Is that I think it's Yu-Gi-Oh! You don't attack players. You attack creatures. You choose which creature your creature is going to attack. And... Sephara really is a really, really important card, and I want to keep it around. I need the ability to be able to keep it around. So I think, actually, weirdly enough, I'm going to take the damage. I'm going to take 8 damage straight to the face, which is a massive amount, but we do have a card that gives lifelink, or that has lifelink, so we're going to gain that life back. The only problem, of course, is that commanders have this other special ability we haven't talked about. So commander damage from Gargus. So if we take 21 or more damage from Gargus, we lose the game. Automatically, it doesn't matter what our life total is at. We could be 100 million life. It doesn't matter. If we take the full 21 damage or more, we're dead. And that was sort of the way that they solved problems like this. There's a lot of easy ways to get effectively infinite life in Magic. So to try to curb strategies like that, they made it possible for commanders to not have to deal the full amount of damage to cause somebody to lose the game. So we're taking that damage now, but we're going to have to keep an eye on it, because if we take too much damage from Gargus, we lose the game. So for now, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to we're going to have this be, we're going to take this one, damage this one turn and call it good for now. So we're moving back over to the soldier deck. The soldiers, do notice that Metalworker is a big deal. Especially, so they have 7 cards in their hand. We don't know what it is, but we don't know what's in there, but we know that it's going to be artifacts. They already have 5 mana. Almost certainly they're going to be able to play whatever's in their hand, even without Metalworker. Let's see. So, but they may only be able to play one of them a turn. So that is a kind of big question here. So if they have Metalworker, let's say it's really bad. Let's say there's 7 artifacts in their hand. So they're getting 14 mana. They'll have 19 total. They'll almost certainly be able to play multiple artifacts in a single turn. That would be bad. That would be really bad news. We do not want that. But if we take it out now, if we destroy Metalworker right now, and see, the thing is that Metalworker could keep giving them a bunch of mana every turn. I'm kind of thinking that maybe it's time to go ahead and destroy it. I think Metalworker is such a strong card. It's worth go ahead and destroying it now before they can use it, before anything problematic happens. So just before we take our turn, we're going to go ahead and destroy it. We'll sacrifice Aura of Silence to destroy target artifact or enchantment. We'll destroy Metalworker. Okay, so now we will take our turn. So we will untap, upkeep, draw a card. Recruiter of the Guard. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature with toughness 2 or less, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So actually we need to draw a second card for the turn. Unified Strike. Remove target attacking creature from the game if its power is less than or equal to the number of soldiers in play. Ooh, that's pretty good. Okay, we are going to go ahead and put Secluded Step into play tapped. That's the 1 land that we had in our hand. Let's see here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 mana. I think that in this case we're going to pay 3 and we're going to play, actually it costs 1 less. Hey, look at that. So because this is a soldier and Ballyrush Banneret makes it cheaper. So we're going to go and play Recruiter of the Guard. So now, when it enters the battlefield, we may search our library for a creature with toughness 2 or less, reveal it, and put it into our hand, then shuffle our library. So we have a lot of choices here. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of cards in this deck that fit those requirements, which is to figure out which one it is. Figure out what the best one is. Toughness 2 or less. Yes. Okay. Here's one that makes it so that whenever another creature comes into play, we make something stronger. This one, all of our creatures get 1 more toughness. Let's see here. Nope, not that one. This guy, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. That may be a card. We need to set that aside to think about it. Whenever this guy deals combat damage, you get a +1/+, or a 1/1 creature. Let's see. We have this one. Other soldiers get +1/+0. That's too big. I'm thinking about, there are different cards. This one, whenever we attack with it, we get to put a soldier into play for free. Oh, it's just a little bit too much. This guy, protection from black and from green. Mentor the Meek. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield, we may pay 1 and draw a card. Let's see. This guy, he puts a count. He makes all soldiers stronger, 1 stronger once he comes into play. Oh, man, I think this Gold Knight Commander is probably the strongest one, the strongest thing. So there was one other one that I was thinking about. So Aerial Responder here, he has just one toughness too much. He starts off with Flying, Vigilance, and Lifelink. So if I could put him straight into my hand using Recruiter of the Guard, then it would suddenly we could do some crazy shenanigans with that. So unfortunately we can't. So we're just going to do this. So let's see here. We do have some mana left over. Okay, we are going to get up to some crazy shenanigans this turn. We're just going to cross our fingers and hope that somebody doesn't get frisky with a Gargus and take us down. Because we're about to go nuclear with our soldiers here. So let's go ahead and do this. Man, our glare is a little high. I'm gonna go and fix that in a second. That's still a little high. Ah, that looks a little better. Okay. Sun's shining through the windows a little too much. So we're getting this into our hand. Yeah, this is going to be really, really good. So we're going to pay 3 mana, and we are going to cast Golden Knight Commander. So it only costs 3 because it's a soldier, and Ballyrush Banneret makes it so that it's cheaper to play. And then we are also going to pay 3 here and play Loxodon Warhammer. So we are about to be set up for next turn being incredible. Incredible. But for now, we have the problem of Elspeth possibly getting killed. So we're going to go ahead and remove the last 2 counters from her in order to get 3 more soldiers. So let's go ahead and do that. Get these 3 more soldiers. No, not that one. Just in case it's actually useful later on. So yeah, here we go. So technically speaking, with these 3 soldiers coming into play, all of our creatures are getting all of our creatures are getting +1/+1 until end of turn. So we already have quite a crazy army here. These are all very strong creatures. So the question, of course, is, okay, what do we want to attack somebody this turn, or do we want to hold off and have some blockers available in any case? Let's see here. So these soldiers are only 3/3s. I think it makes sense to go ahead and hold off. We could attack the Thopters. I'm not sure if that's necessary. So we're going to go ahead and, let's see, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 3 more to equip. That's perfect. We have perfect amount of things. Okay, so we are going to pass the turn. That is all we're going to do. We have a great setup. It could get screwed up, but for now, this is all we're going to do. We're just going to go ahead and hold our army for now and have everybody quell in fear, because Gold Knight Commander didn't do anything this turn, but they also could realize that it's possible we do have something else up our sleeve. So for now, Master Thopterus is going to go draw 2 cards. Oh, both islands. Perfect. Let's go and play those islands. We have a number of different things that we could do here. So I think that we want to... It's unfortunate we had Unwinding Clock in our hand. So Metalworker has tapped to add a bunch of mana. Unwinding Clock has untap all artifacts you control during every other player's upkeep. So we could just get mana, tons of mana every single turn, every one of their turns, basically. Unfortunately, that's not what we have. So I think, though, we don't have anything to make stuff cheaper. I think that the thing that we want to do is go and play this prototype portal. So when we cast it, we get a free Thopter. And then Prototype Portal comes into play. It costs 4 mana, and when it enters the battlefield, we may exile an artifact card from our hand. So in this case, we are going to exile Steel Overseer. So that seems like a bad thing, that we would exile our Steel Overseer, but we have this really cool thing. Prototype Portal says pay X mana, where X is the converted mana cost of the exiled card. So we're going to do that. We're going to pay 2 mana. We tap Prototype Portal, and now we have a copy of Steel Overseer on the battlefield. So, and we can keep doing that every single turn that we have. Next turn we can make another one. Next turn we can make another one. So on and so on and so on. So this is really good. Steel Overseer is a really strong card. It basically has tap it, put a +1/+1 counter on each artifact creature you control. So it's going to make it so that all of our artifacts get increasingly stronger. Double thumbs up with that. Okay, that's all we want to do though, because we are very small compared to everybody else. So we're just going to have to hold off and hope that soldiers don't kill us first, basically. Okay, so angels are going to go untap, upkeep. We don't have anything during our upkeep, so we will draw 2 cards for the turn. Nice. Another land. We want more than that, but that's okay. So let's see what we want to do. We are a little concerned about potentially losing our Sephara. So in order to try to mitigate that a little bit, we are going to pay 6 mana, and we're going to play Adarkar Valkyrie. So it is a snow creature, actually, but it is an angel, so it's now indestructible based on Sephara Skyblade's ability. And it has tap when target creature other than Adarkar Valkyrie dies this turn, return that card to the battlefield under your control. So we can, hopefully next turn, we can't do anything this turn, but maybe next turn we can do something about making sure that Sephara basically never fully dies. But for now, we're going to go ahead and attack here's the thing. Now we really do have 2 choices. Gargus is really strong, but we do have a blocker for that now. We haven't done anything about the soldier deck, though, and the soldiers could be really problematic. So the Hydras are problematic. They have a lot of power on the battlefield right now. But we'll be building up angels every turn after this. So we're not like terrified of the Hydras right now. We're really actually that Loxodon Warhammer is a really, really big problem because it gives everything else. Once that soldier player equips it to a creature, all of their creatures have trample and lifelink, and they could have really strong creatures. We don't know what they have in their hand. They don't have too many cards, but just a couple of creatures means that all of their creatures get +2/+2 and have trample and lifelink. They're going to gain so much life, they'll be leaps and bounds ahead of us, and we'll never be able to catch up. We may never be able to catch up, is what I should say. So I think that in this case, we actually are going to attack the soldiers. So the soldiers are going to lose 7 life, and we will gain 7 life. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that looks like it's not too terrible. I'm okay with this. Okay, but that's all we can do for the turn is try to have Adarkar Valkyrie hold the fort for us by being indestructible, so that we can shield ourselves from a Gargus attack for 1 turn, and then we'll play some more angels and we'll have more indestructible, and it'll be a little bit better. We also have a good card in our hand to try to wipe the battlefield in case the soldiers attack and they don't kill us in a single hit. So they might kill us in a single hit. Who knows? Okay, so Gargus is going. So we get to so here's a cool thing. We had an untap Colossal Majesty at the beginning of your upkeep. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. We have multiple creatures with more than 4 power, so we're going to draw a card. Tribute to the Wild. Nice. That's a really good card. Then we draw cards for the turn. So Rite of Flourishing means that we draw 2 cards. Let's go and do that. Let's go and play a Forest. Yeah, I think I think that we're going to go ahead and play everything that we have. So we're going to pay 2 mana first to play Leering Emblem, and then we're going to pay 2 more to equip Leering Emblem to Gargus. So Leering Emblem is an equipment, so that means that it's an artifact with a cost, so we have to pay the cost to play it, but then after we pay that cost, it has an equip cost on top of that, and that equip cost allows us to attach it to a creature we control. In this case, it's going to be Gargus. Whenever you play a spell, equipped creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. That's incredible. That's great news. So, I think we need to make some people calm down here. Let's see. I really dislike the Loxodon Warhammer. I do not like this idea of trample and other things. We are going to go ahead and cast this. Return to nature. Destroy target artifact. We're going to destroy the Loxodon Warhammer. Then we are also going to do this. I think that this is probably a good move. We're going to pay 2 more, and we're going to cast Tribute to the Wild. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact or enchantment. So looking around, unfortunately, Endless Atlas is the only artifact that the soldier deck currently has. Oblivion Ring is the only enchantment or artifact that the angels have. In this case, the artifact deck, the Thopter deck, is going to sacrifice a Thopter. They have these cheap little Thopter guys. Let's just go and toss it. We don't need one of those guys. We have one already. We only need one, right? Okay, but that means that Gargus now has +4/+4, so it is a 12/11 creature. That's pretty strong. That's pretty bulky. Unfortunately, he doesn't have trample. So, trample, what that ability means, is that, so how combat works, creatures deal damage to each other. So we declare attackers, somebody else declares blockers. Those creatures basically perform combat. They fight each other. They attack each other. They each deal damage to the other equal to their power number. And any leftover damage, so, like my guy's really strong. Let's say the Thopter, the 1/1 Thopter blocks my big 12 power Hydra. Well, unfortunately, without trample, all of that 12 damage goes only to the Thopter. None of it rolls over to the player. The Thopter just takes it all. So we do need to figure out a way to get that trample, but I guess we'll get to there. Okay, so let's see. So I think that we are, weirdly enough, we're going to attack the artifact player with that's interesting. Actually, with just 2 creatures, we're going to attack the Thopter deck with these 2 creatures. So actually, Gargus has Vigilance, so he does not tap. Okay, so I chose this attack because Hydra Omnivore, remember way back, we haven't talked about it in a while, but Hydra Omnivore has the ability that whenever it deals combat damage to one opponent, it ends up dealing combat damage to all the opponents. So actually, we probably should have equipped Leering Emblem to that guy, but it's kind of too late now. We already made our bad choices, so we have to live with them now. So this means either they're going to take... So they have 3 creatures to block with. They have their commander, they have a Thopter, and they have Steel Overseer. So, really, that Thopter is what they're going to block with. But which one do they block? Do they block Gargus, so they don't take commander damage? Or do they block the Hydra, so that everybody doesn't take 8 damage? Because the Steel Overseer is a really important card. They want that card. They like Steel Overseer. But they don't want to, they don't want to lose it, but they're getting attacked with 2 pretty beefy guys. So I think in this case, the Thopter deck really is going to just block Gargus, so it doesn't take that damage. And that means that Hydra Omnivore is going to go unblocked and deal 8 damage to everybody else. So let's go and do that. So this is 8 damage here. This is 8 damage here. And soldiers are also taking 8 damage. There. Yikes. Ouch. Nom 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 nom. That is all we're going to do this turn. We do not have anything else we want to do. So it's just going to be passing. And we did that because the soldiers are going to chump block. So there isn't much that we can't get through them. So I think it makes more sense to do it this way. Okay, so untap. Losing Loxodon Warhammer really kind of not so great. We really needed that card. Now that'll be okay. We can still do stuff, but here, oh well. So nothing during our upkeep. We draw 2 cards: Preeminent Captain and Field Marshal. Ooh, oh. Okay, well, Field Marshal. I'm going a little bit crazy here. So let's go and tap 3. We're going to go and play this. No, actually, it costs 1 less. 1 less. Field Marshal. So other soldiers you control get +1/+1 and have first strike. So all of our soldiers have first strike, and now everything has first strike. That's great news. And also that means that when this creature came into play, all of our creatures got +1/+1 until end of turn. That doesn't seem like a lot, but it's about to be a lot. So we are going to pay 6 mana. I'm going to leave this one untapped. We're going to play 6 mana and cast Nomad's Assembly. So this has put a 1/1 white core soldier creature token onto the battlefield for each creature you control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're putting 11 creatures into play. And not only that, but this has rebound. If you cast this spell from your hand, exile it as it resolves. At the beginning of your next upkeep, you may cast this card from exile without paying its mana cost. So we are going to get a second dose of this card next turn. So since we have this, let's go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to go ahead and we have so many creatures now. We got to figure out a way to keep track of them. Yeah, that was 6. Okay. 6 of those guys, and we're going to separate it. Here's the 11 that just came into play. Let's go and get 2 dice here. So here is 6 and 5. So these are the ones that came into play, right? This turn. Yai Chihuahua. Okay. Ooh. So what that means is that with these 11 coming into play, that means that all of my other creatures get +11/+11. There's a lot of really big creatures right now. These guys all right here, the ones that can attack, because these guys can't attack this turn. They have Summoning Sickness. These guys can attack this turn, though. And they're each dealing at least 12 damage. At least first strike. So, yeah, that's good news. That's good news for us. That means that we need to see about life totals and see who is dangerous and who is not. In this case, the Thopter deck is not the dangerous one. The Hydras and the Angels are dangerous to us. We do not like them. We need to decide which one we want to guarantee is going to die this turn. Let's see. Golden Knight Commander, we probably don't want to attack with unless we attack using him against the Angel deck. So, my concern here, the only concern that I have is that the Angel deck does have a lot of cards in her hand. They do have open mana. I think that I like the thought of them dying because they could exile. So we're going into combat. Did they exile anything? No, they didn't exile any cards. So they may not have removal because if they had removal, they would get rid of Audric, I think. So they don't. So that gets us in a good position. They may have something else in their hand, though, because they are mono white. They do have wrath effects. We don't know what they have in their hand, right? But we do know because of the color white. Big Stompies, yeah, definitely huge Stompies. Because they're a white deck, they are more likely to have wrath effects. And a wrath effect is destroying everything on the battlefield. And I say that because white and black, the white and black colors of Magic, have the most wrath cards. That, like, hands down, they have the most cards that get rid of all of the creatures on the battlefield. And we have a really, really, really big group of creatures right now. That would be a really bad deal for us if we lost all of those creatures. Especially since they're going to essentially win us the game. So we need to see about, let's see, so the Angels we need to hit with let's see, at least 5 creatures, because 2 of them are going to be blocked. They're absolutely, I mean, they're going to try to save their life total as much as they can. So we need 5 creatures to attack them with to make sure that they lose the game. So we don't want to lose anything important that we have over here due to mismanagement from not killing that. So let's see. So if we attack with these and one more, let's go and do it like this. If we attack with these, so there's 5 here, that will be enough to defeat the Angel deck this turn. If we attack with these 5 against the Hydras, they have 3 blockers. So we're going to only get 2 attacks through with them. That's going to take out a lot of their life, but not all of it. But I think I might be okay with that. We have a lot of blockers for our next turn, and we have some more cards to just go completely crazy. Plus we have something to actually exile stuff with. So that's another good card to consider if we need to. Let's see. Yeah, because the Gargus deck doesn't have any cards in their hand. That's the key point here. So the unknown is also more important than the known. The Hydra deck doesn't have any cards in their hand, which means that they'll draw 3 cards next turn, but they don't know what those would be, so they can't really plan around a strategy right now. They have to use essentially whatever they already have out. The Angel deck could have any number of things. They have 7 cards in their hand. They could be packing tons of different stuff that could really screw us up. So yeah, I think that just solidifies pretty clearly that the Angels need to be taken out for sure, because otherwise we could rearrange this a little bit and be able to get enough creatures to take out the Hydra deck. But I think that the Hydras can't really do much against us. I mean, they can attack with everything, but yeah, they basically have to block with all of the things that they have to be able to survive. So yeah, I think this is how our attacks are going to go. So the Angels are going to block, but they are going to end up taking. So this was, I said 12, so 11, 12, 13. No, wait. So 1 here, 2 here. Then this one was 3. And then 11 more. So 14. This is 14 power. This is 14 power. So they're going to... Oh, wait, no, we need 1 more. So let's see. I guess this one is the one that they don't block. So 14... Let's see. Let's go and do this. So 14, so it needs to be 28. 28 damage, and then another 15 on top of that. Okay. So the Angels are toast. They're done for. They're sunk. Okay, so the humans, these soldiers right here, these blank soldiers are going to go after the Hydras. So the Hydras have a choice about what they want to block. I mean, Vastwood Hydra would be good to. I think we have to block with all three of the creatures that we have. I mean, Gargus does die though. That's very unfortunate, but I don't know. I don't see how else we can. Let's see. If I don't block with Gargus, let me think about this. So, I would be taking. Let me think. If I block only 2 of the 5 soldiers, it's 14 times 3. So, let's see, 42. No, wait. I need to. I'm not stupid. I can get this. I need to do this in my head, though. 14. 3. No, 42 is correct. Okay, so that will kill us. We definitely have to block with 3 creatures. That is stinky. That big stinky. Okay, well, we have to survive. So that means that Vastwood Hydra is going to transfer its 5 counters over to the Hydra Omnivore. And Gargus is going to go into our command zone, unfortunately. Ouch. And we still take 20... Oh, 28. Oof. Oof. That's bad. That's very bad. Soldiers definitely looking to be winning this game without some kind of intervention. Massive intervention, I should say. Okay, so the soldiers have done about as much damage as they could possibly do in a single turn. So the artifacts are going to go now. I don't know that they can do anything about this. So untap, upkeep, draw a card. Well, draw 2 cards actually. Oh, man. Okay, so we don't have many options here. We don't have many options for what we can do. The best thing that we can do is to see if there's something in our library that can help us, because right now we are stuck, unfortunately. I think that we do have Maraudon Besieged, but we don't have 15 artifacts in our graveyard, and we are very unlikely to be able to get to 14 more by the by our end of the turn to take out the soldiers. So I think that our best bet is to Tezzeret here. So Tezzeret the Seeker is another Planeswalker. Comes into play with 4 counters on it, but we are just going to immediately remove all 4 of the counters and let him die for his ability. So he has a -X ability. Search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost X or less. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So we're going to see what we have. I don't think we have anything, but I could be wrong. There could always be an artifact in here that would help us out. I sincerely doubt it. That's just the way that it's going to have to go, I think. Oh. Let's see. There's a number of choices, but there's nothing that looks like it's going to be remotely good enough to counter that. Icky. very icky. Because we can get this Phyrexian Metamorph, but I'm not seeing something that it can copy that would actually lead us out of this game. That's the closest thing that we have that could really do something, because we don't really have removal in the artifacts that we currently have in the deck. The stuff that would be really powerful isn't really for this situation, unfortunately. Or it costs too much. Or it's too slow. Like, it doesn't do anything this turn, but might in a subsequent turn, possibly. I think that Phyrexian Metamorph is probably the best thing that we can do. I would say maybe the Gold Knight Commander. I copy the Gold Knight Commander because maybe we can make some Thopters and such stronger. I don't know. This is about all that. I don't think there's really anything else that I can do. Unfortunately. So, let's go ahead and pay 1. We'll play Retrofitter Foundry, which gets us a free Thopter, and unfortunately, I think that's all we're going to do for the turn. We're just going to go ahead and pass, unfortunately. Angels did have the card that they needed to stop this shenanigans, but it was a turn too slow. The soldiers were able to take over in a single turn and make the wise choice to get rid of the Angels. Now, I did that based on, like I said, knowing that what each of the colors in Magic are good at, and that's definitely a thing that you should keep track of once you start playing. You should start getting familiar with what each of the colors are really good at. So white is really good at making a lot of little creatures, as well as destroying artifacts and enchantments. Those are like 2 of the things that they're really, really good at. Then green is really good at getting a bunch of mana and making really, really big, beefy creatures. Black is really good at drawing cards and, I don't know, controlling the board. That's one of the things. Blue is also good at drawing cards and controlling the board. And then red is good at being really, really fast. No, those aren't. That's all bad things. There's a lot more to it. I'm just making jokes now because I'm not sure what else I can do for this game. It's about over now. Let's go and draw 2 cards for the turn, and it's like 1 turn too late. This is also 1 turn too late. Let's go and play it. So Gargus now costs 6 mana regularly. So let's go and do this. And then it costs 2 more and 2 more. There we go. Okay. So here's Gargus coming out for the 3rd time. Oh, we were supposed to draw an extra card for Colossal Majesty. Okay, Hydra's Growth. Let's see here. So they do have a ton of creatures out. We can now kill a creature if we need to. We can kill some of those creatures to make it harder for them to annihilate all of us. So let's go and try to do that. We are going to tap both of these lands and then sacrifice them both to get us 2 colorless and 2 green mana, which does put us with problems to for later on in case Gargus dies again, but we're going to have to do something. Okay, so the first one, we're going to cast Hydra's Growth on Gargus. So when we cast it, we get to fight something. We're going to fight the Gold Knight Commander. So it's a 2/2. So our Gargus takes 2 damage. So it can take 5 more damage. Except that when Hydra's Growth comes into play, Gargus gets a +1/+1 counter. And at the beginning of our upkeep, we doubled the number of +1/+1 counters on enchanted creatures. So Gargus is going to get a lot stronger. That's good. Then that was 3 mana for that. 2 colorless and 1 green. We have 1 green left, so we're going to use that last green to cast Whip Silk, which is another enchantment. So now our Gargus can block creatures with flying as if it had flying. So that is going to deal damage and kill Audric. So Audric was a... No, actually, so let's see. Gold Knight Commander was actually a 3/3, and Audric was a 4/4, but because of that Hydra's growth, Gargus had 1 more toughness, and it was able to survive. So it would have taken 7 damage and killed Gargus. In this case, Gargus had 8 toughness because of the +1/+1 counter, so it survived. Okay, so now at this point, I think that we just pass the turn. We could attack, but I don't think it's... Let's see. So 13 damage. It's not going to be enough to kill the soldiers off. So unfortunately, we're going to have to pass the turn and just let the soldiers go. Very unfortunate. Okay, so untap. Untap. Upkeep. We cast Nomad's Assembly from exile. We get a number of soldiers equal to core soldiers, specifically equal to the number of creatures that we control. So we're going to get 11, 12, 18, 19, 20. We get 20 more creatures. Holy crap. So 5, 10, no, 5, 10, 15, 20. That is 20 additional creatures that came into play this turn. Unfortunately, we don't get the benefit of Gold Knight Commander. So, let's see. We get to draw 2 cards for the turn. A Plains and Martyr's Cause. Okay. Let's go and play that Plains. So, what can we do? What do we have available to us? I think that maybe... Let's see. So, Audric is going to cost more mana. Normally it's 3. It's 2 more than that because the additional cost. We have 5 mana left over. It's not quite enough to do the deployment thing that I want to do. But we're really only gaining that first strike damage. So let's see. Do we want everything to have first strike damage? How much damage can we deal? So we have 11... and another 6, 17, 15 damage. How much does the... Oh, yeah, we absolutely do want to do that. Okay, that's what we're doing. So we're going to pay 5 mana, and we are going to cast Audric. So now all of our creatures are going to have that first strike damage. Actually, I guess they already have the first strike. We don't need to cast Audric for that. So, okay, so maybe we hold off on that because Audric was really making it so that the Field Marshal himself had the additional one. Okay, so let me think about this. The Thopters do have a ton of... They do have a ton of stuff there. Let me think about this. Okay, so I think the first thing that we're going to do is we definitely need to do this. So that's going to be enough for, let's see, so 11, 17. We need to deal 10. So actually we just need to have, let's see. So this 11 covers almost all of it. So we need 1 more soldier to attack. So there we go. So 12, because they have 2 blockers. So that's enough to kill off the Hydra deck. Or, no, they have +1/+1. So actually, no, because... let's see, 6 here. Let me take that back a little bit. Okay. So they're dealing 2 damage each. So let's see. We only need 7 of them to attack. So we could have 4 other ones if we wanted. 4 untapped here that aren't. Yeah, because that's enough to kill them unless they had something with lifelink, which I don't think that they do. Okay. We could attack those guys over there if we wanted to. Let me think about this. So we have 10, that's 20 damage total. They could block 3. We could just attack straight out. Actually, okay, so let's see. Before we declare attackers, I think we do want to cast the last card that's in our hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's go and do this. 7 mana. We're going to cast Deploy to the front. So put X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. 20. It's absurd. 27, 28, 32, 38, 40 creatures from just that. 42, 46 creatures. We're going to get 46 more soldiers. Because we're absolutely doing that. Let's see. Oh, this is crazy. 46. Okay. 46. So that way, if some of the soldiers die, we still got like full use out of this. Okay. So we have that. Let's go and declare attackers now. So this 7 right here, they are going to go after... they're going to go after the Hydras and annihilate them. These 10 plus these 2 are going to attack the Thopters. So, let's see here. That's a lot of damage. Let's see. The Hydras, let's go and mark the Hydras dead because they're definitely dead. Adjust. Yeah. You're toast. Soldiers and assault helicopters. Was there anything else that we could really do? Well, actually, so we can tap the Retrofitter Foundry, sacrifice the Thopter, which gets us a 4/4 colorless construct. Do I have colorless constructs? Yes, I do. Okay, so here we go. That comes into play. We have a copy of Gold Knight Commander, which means our creatures all get +1/+1. So that's nice, at least. That means we can block with a little bit more. Gold Knight Commander starts off as a 2/2, so we have a 3/3 there. We have a let's see, a 1/1. I'm turning this a little bit just so we can see, because I think that we can block 4 creatures with this, because our Steel Overseer starts off as a 1/1. Let's go and switch that up to this. So we can block and then activate Steel Overseer to give all of our artifact creatures +1/+1. So our Steel Overseer, let's see, I mean, I guess it's, yeah, actually it'll survive something. So let me think about this. Ballyrush Banneret is probably a good one to block. So let's go and do that. We're going to block with all 4. This one's going to block a token. We're going to tap it and put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature, or each other artifact creature we control. I mean, this is like not great, but even still. Okay, so we have those. This guy's going to block Ballyrush Banneret. And these 3 are going to block tokens. So, yeah, we'll just say there's 1 left of that. Oh, I guess 1 left here. Volley Rush, Banneret dies, and they take this 6, this 1, and this 1. So these are all 2 2s. I should be clear about that. They are 2 2s. So 12, 14, 16 damage to the assault helicopters. Ouch. Okay. So the assault helicopters are going to tap the last 3 mana that they have in order to cast Martyr's Cause, so that we can prevent, if we need to prevent damage, if something goes horribly wrong with this insane scenario, then it'll still be okay because we can like sacrifice some creatures to absorb some damage if we really, really need to. But we'll see. We have so many creatures. I can't imagine that this deck would have to draw this Thopter deck would have to draw literally exactly the perfect card to put a stop to this. So untap, upkeep, draw a card. Reverse Engineer is not that. Reverse Engineer is not the card to do that. Yeah, I'm not sure what we really have that can do anything in this case. Because we only got to draw 1 card because of Rites of Flourishing is now gone. We'd still need to play Marauders Besieged and like get rid of everything we have to be able to do anything. And we just don't have enough things to do that with. Because we could play the Marauders Besieged, and with 3 mana, and then with these 2, we could sacrifice 4 artifacts. We do have 1, 2, 3, 4 artifacts to be able to do that with. But we'd only have 5 artifacts, and we need 15 to be able to make somebody lose the game. I mean, might as well. I mean, it's the only thing that we really can do at this point, because we don't have enough mana. We didn't draw the right card, so we're going to play Marauders Besieged. Then we're going to sacrifice 2 things, 2 artifacts to draw a card. Tomb of the Spirit Dragon. We haven't played a land this turn. I guess let's go ahead and play a blue land might be better. We're going to use 2 more mana and sacrifice 2 more artifacts we have. So this one and Prototype Portal. This is exiled forever and gone. We can't do anything with it. So we have these. We draw another card. Actually, we were supposed to draw a card from this other artifact dying. It's back here a little bit. Ichor Wellspring, when it enters the battlefield or it gets destroyed, we get to draw a card. So let's go ahead and... I mean, I guess we keep all the cards in our hand. So then we end the turn. So when we end the turn, we draw a card, then discard a card. So we're going to draw a card and discard these 2 artifacts. So if we had 15 or more artifacts in our graveyard, target opponent would lose the game. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, I mean, we got a lot closer, but we still needed a lot more. Let's see. Yeah, and we discarded down to hand size. So, I mean, like I said, we were pretty close. We were about 5 artifacts away. But there's nothing we could have done. Okay, soldiers take it this time. They did a great job. They deserve the win, honestly. The soldiers, I think, have lost a few times. They've gotten close, but they keep getting wrathed or something. So, yeah. But that's an incredible amount of damage next turn. Holy crap. Okay. Well, and what were they going to draw anyway? Mentor of the Meek. Wasn't going to buff them, but yeah, such a good game. This was a great game. Okay, well, I think that unless somebody has a quick question, I'm probably going to wrap up the stream now. We got through this game. It's we not really enough time to play another game, so I think that we'll go ahead and close it up. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. We will return with some more Magic on Wednesday or Thursday, depending upon how things are going, and go from there. So I guess the other thing, I have been playing video games on Saturday morning, so you can catch me then. We played Shadow of the Colossus yesterday. So you can always catch a video game here or there, but mostly just Magic. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.